Hello.
Hey Tom, how's it going?
Yeah, not so bad. Yourself?
Pretty good.
Cool.
Uh,
Thank you very much for doing this, first of all.
no, no worries.
Yeah, my first time. Go easy on me. Uh, could,
Sure thing.
could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Michael Todd, and I own Michael Todd Games. I originally named it when it was just my solo company, and it was just like the corporate structure under which I could release games and not be sued, sort of thing. Not have to pay personal taxes. But then recently for this game, Electronic Superjoy, I've scaled up the team so that at this point, the team is maybe 5 or 6 people. And you can actually see some of them in the background because we're working. That's Will, that's Ryan. Ryan did all the sound effects and mastering the music, and Will's programmer. That's Taylor. So we're crunching away for our release of August 23rd.
Yep.
Coming out on Steam is a big 1.0. We're going to be on the Steam front page, and we're assuming our traffic is going to spike. And we're doing this thing on the 24th called the Electronic Superjoy Twitch-tacular. And we got a bunch of Twitch TV people who are all going to live stream it throughout the day. So we're actually averaging like 3 to 5 people doing a live stream of the game every day right now because it kind of fits with the community of that. It's very hardcore, and it's actually almost nicer to watch someone else play it sometimes because it's so hard. It's like you want to watch someone else play it. And but for the Twitch-tacular on the 24th, we're hoping to have just like 12 streams going and just kind of overwhelm Twitch and get a bunch of people looking at the game.
Wow, sounds fantastic. Yeah, very good. Sorry, just got questions.
No worries.
When did you decide to start making games,
So I always kind of made things. I made board games when I was a kid, when I was like 10, and I started fiddling around doing computer stuff with a friend who was a programmer when I was maybe 13. And in the end, when I was 14, I was a game designer, and I had done all sorts of paper pencil stuff and running around tag variants and used the StarCraft editor and the Civilization 2 editor to make mods and stuff. And then eventually I was just like going through someone to program it. So I'm going to learn how to program.
Yep.
And this kind of impatience is why I'm currently, I did a good chunk of the art for Electronic Superjoy. I did a good chunk of the programming. I did a good chunk of the level design. And for Electronic Superjoy, because it's so big, I had to hire a team to help me out with a lot of this. But a lot of my games, I do all of it. The one thing I really don't do is music. So I generally work with a variety of musicians.
Oh, right. Yeah, interesting.
So Envy and Electronic Superjoy, I've actually been working with them off and on for like 5 years. And then this one was like, I really like your music. Instead of just using one track, can I use your entire library? And can we build a game around it? And so that's kind of this game.
Right. Funny you should say that. I was going to ask you because the music really it suits the game. It accentuates it fantastically. Really adds to the experience. I was wondering which came first. Did you have the music in mind and then you built the game around it, or did you build the game then put the music to it? Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where the exact point was, but I wanted to build a platformer, and I've been playing Techno Kitty Adventures and the Impossible Game because I was building small games for XBLIG, which is the Xbox indie marketplace. It's actually been shut down now, but it was always very small, and the only advertising you could do, because it was so hard to get to, basically there was no point in getting on Rock Paper Shotgun because they didn't affect your sales at all. The only thing that really mattered was the tiny little banner. And so I set out to design this game that was really like lively and like vivid and so forth. And so I picked one of Andy's tracks and I went with a pink and black art style. And then I never released it because I got a job, and then the job kind of distracted me from working on that platform. And then last year, I wanted a game to go full time on, and I wanted a game that could really have enough juice for me to put more time and effort into it. And so it's taken a while, and we pushed our release dates by a year. We were going to come out last Christmas, and they were like, no, let's double our time. So we have 35 unique tracks, I think is the last count, and about an hour and a half of actual music. And that was all made over the last 5 or 6 years by Envy. And Ryan, who you saw in the background there, has taken what was little clips and works in progress and songs that just ended dead, and little staticky pieces. And he essentially took this musician's library, he's quite talented, but this was his work in progress pile. And so Ryan has made it so they're loopable and clean and sound good and, mixed in stuff and so forth. And together they've made this existing library work for the game. And then the game itself has a lot of levels that are built around the music. So there's a lot of sections where the level has a natural progression because the music has a natural progression.
Right.
Ones where when the beat drops, when the break really happens, it builds up, and then something happens, and then the level changes. So there's one where the camera rotates, and one where the effects all explode, and there's levels where the monsters fire missiles at you on the beat, and the final boss, the 3 pieces of music he's wrapped around, the whole boss segment is completely timed to the music, so that the boss will change modes and fire different weapons based on how the music feels, which is really cool because you get this, when the music dies down and there's a tense waiting period, the boss is also that's in his shield phase kind of thing, and then when it explodes, that's when he's firing missiles like crazy, so it matches up really well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love that aspect about it. Yeah, it really it kept you going. You just wanted more and more and more and more. Yeah, I loved it, and it seemed very current as well. Well, I don't know about the fashionable music in America right now, but here in the UK, that's definitely the in music right now. So I thought, brilliant. The guys obviously got his ears to the ground, which was great. Yeah, very good.
I really like Envy. I like him as a musician. I listen to him while I work, and I kind of really wanted to use his music. And he, as a musician, is perfect. I like him just because I like his music, but it's kind of, I would say, he's the one who's got his ear to the ground, and I'm standing on his shoulders. That's all.
All right. Yeah. Great stuff. What kind of development tools do you actually use as a developer now? Then.
We're a Unity 3D game, which seems to be the answer for most games these days. We use a lot of outside tools, Visual Studios, C# Monodevelop, Audacity, various sound and art and music editing tools. But the core of it all really is Unity 3D. So we're using Unity 3D Pro. Currently we have 3 seats. We have more team members than that, so technically we have to cycle out who sits on the computer that can build levels versus the computer that can do web development. So the computers have all become very generic, and anybody can pick up any one of them. There's no personalized desktops because we can only afford a few copies of the software. We have more people working on it than that.
Sure, yeah. I understand, yeah. How long did it take in total to make Electronic Superjoy then?
I've been working on it full-time since August of last year, so we're just coming up on a year. I built the prototype 2 years ago, but that was a week or two, and the team members have come and gone. So there was a level designer, Cassie, who came on full-time in October of last year, and she stayed on project for most of it, and she's still currently in as a sort of manager, but we've built the levels, and we've had the levels built for a couple of months now, so her primary task isn't as useful. And Ryan, although he's been helping us right up to the release, and he's currently mixing some sound effects, his job, spiked at one point where we were all right, let's put in all the music, let's put in all the sound, and he had a ton of work on his plate, and then when we kind of finished that, so the team kind of comes and goes as needs dictate. I've been on it full-time just because I can wear all the different hats, so
sure.
I can always do something.
Any funny stories or blunders?
Probably way too many. My funniest thing was when were working in the office, and I was working really late, and I was crunching every night. And for some reason, my brain was poisoned on the lack of sleep. I wrote on the whiteboard, "Gone to England," and no other explanation. And then I went home and slept until like 2 p.m., so I came in really late. And Cassie spent the whole day going, "T-Wood, nah." But then I didn't come in, so she was like, "No, but yeah." So I had her convinced I'd gone to Europe for about half a day. Other than the office hijinks, the orgasm checkpoint sounds were kind of hilarious because they were actually initially a bug. It was only meant to play when you got it the first time, not every time you died. But it was a bug, and then we play tested it with a bunch of people, and everybody's like, "Oh, no, that needs to stay. That's awesome." And so,
yeah, and yeah, I noticed that the orgasm noise. Yeah.
we're gonna have a PG mode in the options for people who are playing with their kids in the background, or their spouse or girlfriend doesn't particularly enjoy it or something. But I mean, generally, the game is kind of that kind of thing, and we feel that since it's in the trailer, and we're open about it, and we have a warning at the front, we'll put it in the option, but pretty much the game is kind of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's probably a good idea to put in a PG. Yeah, I know when I first started playing through, and the noises came, and I got a look from my wife. Okay, I'll turn the volume down. Yeah, sorry.
I was working on it in a Starbucks, and I had forgotten to turn my sound off, and I'd muted the music, and I was just playing the level, and it was dead silence up until there was this like really orgasmic, "Oh yeah," and I instantly hit mute. But the problem is that was almost worse because it didn't come off as a sound effect. It came off as me turning on pornography and then muting it 3 seconds later. And everybody at the Starbucks turned and looked at me, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm not even going to begin to explain that."
Electronic Superjoy is not your first game. How do you feel?
No, I think it's my 35th or something.
Yeah, how are you progressing? Do you feel as a developer? Is it getting easier or?
I don't know about easier. It's certainly, this is my biggest, shiniest project yet.
Yeah.
When I say I've got 35 games, I'm counting like anything that I've actually officially released, but a lot of that is smaller free games from back when I was like trying to make it as an indie. I only have 4 games that are actually on sale, and only 2 of those are within the last 2 years. I would say it's my best game yet. It's maybe I've certainly done like very weird genres. I've done RTSs, I've done multiplayer first-person shooters, and so it's kind of apples and oranges. But this is certainly my favorite one so far.
Yeah, I noticed you were planning to release it on smartphones. Do you feel that's now an important platform for developers?
I think tablets are going to suit the market, and honestly, tablet development and games that work with the tablet interface. Phones, I mean, they've pretty much to the point where they don't make them bigger because they're uncomfortable, not because they can't. So phones are a very widespread market. So yes, we're going to come out on phones just from a financial point of view. But the thing is, I had an iPad, and I was convinced that these things, like all the people like my mother who want to use a computer, want to be in the world and have email and watch YouTube, can use that. But they don't need to worry about installing drivers or whatever else. I mean, the only thing an iPad does is update, or you can wipe it and start again. And it's honestly, I think computers are eventually going to go back to being pretty much used by nerds, because the people who aren't nerds are going to have the latest tablet, and they're going to use that, and why would they bother? Once we figure out maybe a slightly better replacement for the keyboard, or we get more used to typing on the screen, I think as a culture we'll move more towards tablets. So I was playing on my iPad, and I really couldn't find anything that wasn't like a phone game. Like, hey, for $1 you can waste 5 minutes in this. Like, there's a lot of grinding, a lot of like little reflexy twitch things. There were very few games which were actual like games, like full in-depth, what you'd buy on Steam games. And so I thought, well, that's dumb, because the iPad can totally do tons of stuff. It's quite powerful now. I played the Total War on the iPad game, and it wasn't Total War. It was like a dumbed-down, casual version of this kind of thing that could sort of be called a strategy game. But the only relation it had to Total War was the IP. And I was kind of, I know for a fact, as a developer, you could get Shogun Total War running on like their first title. You could get it running on the iPad, and the controls would fit nicely. So it's like the marketplace wants this, and so that's what gets funded. But I think tablets are going to explode as a place like Steam, where there are proper full games, and people like sit down on the couch and use their tablet because they don't want to start up their hulking computer.
Yes.
So I definitely set out to try and make a game that wasn't a phone game, that was like belongs on Xbox games, but that would run on tablets.
Yeah.
And I think I've succeeded.
Sorry, you were saying?
Sorry, cut out. I think I've succeeded at doing that.
Yeah. If you don't mind me saying though, the control scheme for Electronic Superjoy, it's very precise. You've managed to design it so it's very, very tight. It needs to be, really, absolute precision. But how would you translate that onto a tablet or onto a phone? Because the virtual controls are not the best. Actually,
so the virtual controls don't actually suffer from lag. Do you know what I mean? It's not. What it is they suffer from lack of feedback. So when you press down a button without looking, you can tell how much you pressed down that button. Whereas the iPad, all you can tell is whether your thumb is on the glass or not. So I purposely designed the whole game so that while keeping as much complexity as possible, you only ever have one ability at a time.
Yes.
What this does is the left half, the right half of the screen. We're also going to have all these options where you can like swap it for left-handed players, and we're going to have different control schemes. So if you're used to one, but the main control scheme is going to be if you tap the right-hand side of the screen, you trigger your ability. Okay. So you don't need to worry about where your thumb is. You just need to literally tap or untap. That's why in the game you get abilities and they get taken away from you and so forth. But you only have one at a time, unlike some games where you have increasing complexity of abilities. And then the other side, I'm going to go with this interface I designed. So I was playing Super Crate Box, and it was actually kind of annoying with the left-right buttons, which everybody seems to have, because if your thumb slid sideways, you can't tell due to tactical feedback.
That's right.
And you flip, and then you wouldn't hit it, and then you die. Mm-hmm. So some games react by having really big buttons. I designed a system where it looks like a pie chart, and it's cut down the middle. And so what you can actually do is you can move your thumb to where it bumps up against the edge or the bottom edge. And so there's your tactile feedback. And because your hand is here, you actually know where this corner is without thinking about it. So you have this kind of reference point for where your thumb should head.
Right, wow. Sounds like you really planned it from the beginning. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I prototyped it out. Like, I didn't just come up with this. I was like, hey, can I do a platformer on a tablet? Mm-hmm. I played around with some prototypes. It came out reasonably well, and then the game took those limitations as a rule early on, so it's not shoehorned in. Like, Super Crate Box came out on the PC, and where there's lots of keys, and so that's why you have fire and jump and left and right, and just the way they arrange them on the screen is just really awkward. It's a good game, but it just wasn't designed from the beginning to also run on tablets.
Right. Of course, having the game on like Ouya or Project Shield, where there is actually controllers with help matters really. But would we see Electronic Superjoy on those platforms?
It's definitely coming to Ouya. It's definitely coming out on PC, Mac, and Linux. So Steam's big picture. So people who have Steam installed on their their widescreen televisions or whatever can play. It has full controller support, in other words. And we're also quite potentially coming out on the Wii U and PlayStation 3 and 4 and PS Vita and the what's the handheld current Wii one? Anyway, but basically, I've talked with the Nintendo representative, and I've talked to the Sony person, and we're talking it out. I may find their contracts unacceptable because they do tend to require a lot of work, which for a 30-person team making a game is nothing, and I understand its quality checks, but for a very small team, it can be financially bankrupting. So we'll see if we can come out on those platforms. I definitely would like to come out on one of the big consoles as a console game because that's kind of where the root of the game lies.
Yes, that's right.
But hopefully we'll come out on a lot of platforms.
Yeah, Sony especially seem to be making a bit more of an effort with indie developers for this generation. How do you feel they're treating you guys?
Well, I have yet to do more than talk, but just the general rumors are pretty good. It's a good step because Xbox has had to respond by going, oh yeah, we're going to allow people to self-publish. And the reality of that is, the rumors going around with that is that it's actually kind of their old XBLIG system, which is really shitty, with a new paint job on it. But the fact that it's now a bullet point, it's now like a topic which politicians use to get voted in kind of thing, means that eventually indies getting on the platforms will probably be much, much easier because it's now become a aspect of the console war.
Yeah.
So if not right now, maybe next year or the year after.
Yeah, I think indie developers are definitely going to get a lot more of the limelight this time around. I know personally, I do a lot of indie games now, and I would say most of them are on par, if not better, than some of the real big AAA titles. Yeah, it's good. It's good where it's going, definitely.
And I mean, initially the term indie was highly appropriate because everybody worked at the companies, and it was really, really hard because you basically had to sell your game at like fairs and events on a CD, or have it very, very tiny and download it over the internet. But basically, until digital distribution came along as a real thing, until Steam really dominated that market, you had to basically sign with Walmart, and Walmart didn't talk to you. Walmart talked to the publisher. So the indies were not really possible. You had to be at least kind of 10 people, and even then, it was more beneficial at that point to be 400 people, and so that's where the money went, and that's where the companies. But now because it's so easy for one person to download Unity free, learn a bunch of tutorials, learn a little bit of programming, a little bit of art, a little bit of game design, a little bit of music, and put the entire game together themselves. And because that allows, just because so many people are trying it, that allows way more ideas and larger idea space, whereas the big companies can only really go after, they can only fund the things that they know are going to get them their money back because they have to pay all the wages of everybody. it's actually, indie is almost not the appropriate term. It's just that as an industry, we've enabled our individuals enough that they can produce games on their own. And so you get this kind of small team mentality being financially successful. So actually the indie games being on par with the AAA games, the IGF Awards used to be the sideshow, and then it became the main show. And then the indie games started showing up in the actual main game awards alongside Halo and so forth. And now the line is just blurring all over the place. And I think at some point, it's just that our tools have gotten really good, and we don't need to have 400 people on a project, and then 400 people on a project inherently weigh it down with all sorts of other aspects. So I would say indie has just become the term, so it's kind of culturally set in stone now. But I think indie games might actually just become better. Like AAA games may even just become a subcategory of games, yep, or a subcategory of indie games even. Like just, indie games are the whole broad spectrum, and if you want a first-person shooter that's a little bit shinier and has a little bit longer levels, then you go to the AAA games.
Yes. There is a certain coolness about indie developers that people, I think, are really attracted to, though. But if you get poached personally by any of the big boys, Valve, Crytek, Rockstar, would you go, or would you remain an indie developer?
Crytek flew me out first class to their German office. An office in Germany somewhere, Hamburg, I think. And they had a Rolls-Royce driver pick me up, and it was all very fancy and shiny and so forth. And I don't know, I really like my job, but I've been doing this since I dropped out of high school. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years, yep, full time, which I'm very self-taught. I'm one of those people who can teach myself a new skill. It's not very well. I can at the very least, I have the mind that can pick up tutorials and so forth. So I really like my job, but there have been times when I've been very poor or very debt-ridden or living in a really apartment kind of thing, where I would have accepted a job that came with a nice paycheck and so forth. There was a time like that recently, actually, halfway through ESJ's development. And because it hadn't really gone out there, we had some positive feedback, but pretty much not that much. And I'd sunk all my money into ESJ. I'd taken my $40,000 worth of savings, and I put it all into wages and renting an office and, buying the Unity software and just everything. So I was out of money. And then I started going into debt. And I was like, oh, okay, this is not good. I got $14 and I got to pay rent in 28 days. I probably have to go get a job right now. I was considering stocking shelves, and I've been delaying it because the game I put so much work into it, and I really didn't want to have to shelve it.
Sure.
And so I released pre-orders, and pre-orders made me just enough by the end of the month to make rent. So I made rent, and then I went and got a loan and doubled down, and my current net worth is minus 18,000. So I really hope the game makes a lot of money on Steam, because otherwise I'm definitely going and having to get a job. But so far it's been very positive. We've the beta on early access has just about paid off my debt, and I haven't actually gotten the money yet. They pay quarterly, so it'll take a while. But the teams, because of that, I've had some money that I can put towards hiring some of my friends to help me finish it in time, and I don't know. I could definitely see moving away from being indie, yep, barring becoming a millionaire and living on a beach somewhere, and that's my retirement plan. It's a very stressful, high-risk job, and right now I don't have kids, and right now I'm not married, and I could see, even those aspects aside, I don't want to pull the hours I'm pulling now when I'm 35 or 45. I'll die. I'm kind of a functioning workaholic the last 6 months because I've had no choice. I'm neck deep in this project. It can be a super healthy lifestyle. There are a lot of people who do that, and it was for most of it. But when you run out of money and you put all your money into this thing, you screwed up, and you gotta keep going, or you gotta quit. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but I could totally see taking a job with a big paycheck. I haven't yet, and I hope to not have to.
If you had to choose, though, who would you go for?
I would probably go and work for another indie. One of the indies who's gotten a little bit bigger. Drinkbox Studios, I was talking to them, and a friend of mine owns a company down in Palo Alto who wants me to come on as a game designer. And it's kind of like I wouldn't own the projects. The other indie would be like, so companies of 5 or 6 people that are a bit more established, they would be the ones who get the percentage. They would be the ones where if the game makes 500,000, they take that 500,000, and I would just take my wage, you know. Yes. But even though the wage would be smaller than working at a bigger company, maybe almost half, I would get to do whatever I want, and it'd be far more of an indie lifestyle, and I could almost certainly work on my own indie games on the side. So it would kind of be more of a desired thing. And then for an actual big company, I don't know. They're all terrible. I mean, they're all terrible to work at. They make good games, but I don't actually like. I'm really used to having a lot of creative control. I'm totally spoiled. That's all it is. I've just spent so long, you know, in poverty, but being able to do whatever I wanted. So I don't know how I'd respond to working at Gameloft or, I don't know, Ubisoft. I mean, Ubisoft's a great company. Leslie is a wonderful figure in the Toronto community. She's the I think CEO of Ubisoft Toronto, and she runs the IGDA, and she's at all the meetings. She's a wonderful person, but I don't see that I would like to work as part of that team necessarily, because they just have a corporate culture that I wouldn't actually want to, you know, and it's just because it's me, just because I'm spoiled by having made pixel platformers whenever I want.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Back to Electronic Superjoy. Any plans for more levels?
Yes, totally. Basically, I have to focus on the one game for now, and I hate using this term, but monetizing it, because debt. Because I don't want to have to fire the entire team and declare bankruptcy and stock shelves. So basically, the game's going to come out August 23rd, and we will know whether our initial spike, you can tell a lot from how the initial spike goes. And so hoping that we pay off the debts and can get some wages for people so that they can actually make it. We totally want to do some standalone expansion levels. So like kind of we've worked with a new musician. I've actually been talking with a couple of musicians who I can't really say, but you totally know their names, and they're awesome electronic musicians. And we would probably sign on this new musician and do 10, 15 levels with a boss at the end, and it would probably be much tighter. There'd be an interesting like theme or take on a color scheme. There'd probably be the normal ability, but then there'd be a new platforming ability. So each little standalone pack would have a boss, a chunk of levels, a new musician, a new platforming ability, and kind of some new stuff. And then the idea is if we can get that really tight, we can probably make 4 or 5 of these over the next 2 years and release them periodically, and then then put them in a big mega pack, and you can buy them, but not like DLC that's in game, just standalone little chunks. So if you want to just buy that, you can just buy that, and it'll be probably half the cost of the main game.
Yeah, DLC these days is like a bit of a swear word, isn't it? Where It's true. Yeah, I like DLC. Of course, when you like a game, you want more, sure, but it feels a bit like a con sometimes, doesn't it?
Well, sometimes it is. I mean, and that's I think why it's becoming that. So, like, I played a game called Robot Wants Kitty, and it's a Metroidvania on the iPad, and I really liked it. And for $1, you get like 5 more levels, and levels are really big. So, like, levels are like half-hour play or something, and I was like, 3 levels, bought more stuff. And it was really simple. It was transparent. You give us $1, we give you 5 more levels. You played through 3, you've enjoyed it. Isn't that wonderful? Have more. And then that kind of DLC I really like. Like that concept I really like. But whenever it's like, oh yeah, you can buy stuff in the game, and there's like this type of currency, but then there's also this type of currency, and they interact, and there's these like degenerate, and this one has a random chance of happening, and then there's all this other stuff. Then I'm just like, I don't know. I can't figure out whether it's fair. I can't figure out whether I'm being conned. I don't want to touch this. oh, you can play without buying, but we financially are rewarded when you buy, so we're probably going to make the tasks when you don't buy a little bit more arduous, a little bit more grindy. I play it, and even if it's not very grindy, I just have this taste in my mouth knowing that they probably made it a little bit worse, and I'm playing like a subpar version, and I don't know. So yeah, it totally is a swear word because people have been using it badly.
Yes. I totally agree, definitely. Remember back in the day, on the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, you would do a game well, and then you would unlock stuff, but it was, you could enter a cheat code, and then you'll have more weapons or whatever. I miss those. I miss those days, to be honest.
Well, and at least those are giving you content. The problem is that a lot of the really scummy ones, like Town, is a game that's on Facebook, so it's not so surprising. But I played it, and it just struck me as this beyond insane. Yes, you can buy items, but they're one-use items, and you use them up. So you're literally swiping your credit card per play. You never buy the game. It is more of a casino game where you put the money in and you pull the lever, and then maybe you get more money out. Yeah. And in fact, they're not regulated like casinos are. Casinos are actually heavily regulated because they're old. Games are not regulated at all. No. And the other thing is like roulette wheel, at least you have a 1 in 30 chance of winning. It's kind of hard to fake that. Whereas it's digital. We can, if you play Jetpack Joyride, if you play Jetpack Joyride and then you come back after a couple of months, you have an amazing run the first time. And that's not chance. It's because they're like, oh, we've got to grab you back in. So they hack it so that you have a better run the first time. And then they do all sorts of things like, oh, okay, he's lost the roll, he's lost the roll, he's lost the roll. It's not random. It's a pattern of, oh, we think this person's probably about to quit, so give them a reward. They keep you going on next to nothing. And it's kind of, because it's so hidden, because you can make it, tick up like a roulette wheel or a slot machine, but behind it is just pure digital mechanics, and we can make it say whatever we want. Mm-hmm. It's kind of more scummy than casinos.
Yeah, I agree. Are you totally focusing on Electronic Superjoy at the moment, or do you have anything in the pipeline? Any ideas?
Lots of ideas. I can't stop the ideas. It sucks because I can't work on them. I have. I think the bags under my eyes at this point are permanent from not getting enough sleep. But as soon as the game comes out on Steam, maybe a week later, once I know it's not going to explode, we're taking a holiday. And I personally am going to hop a bus and go to Ottawa and then Halifax and just visit some friends and drop off of everybody's radar with a good book for a couple of days. And I will have my laptop, and I will not be working on Electronic Superjoy. I'll be working on one of my tinier ideas. It's going to be fun. Yeah,
brilliant. If you had all the budget in the world, or talent, resources, what kind of game would you make?
I really, really want to make this game, which the work name is just called Trek, and it's a first-person shooter where you're this character, first-person shooter. It would be amazing with online multiplayer, MMOs, but I know I can never make this game, right? And you are inside a spaceship. And so at the beginning, let's say you start in a tiny little spaceship, and there's a cockpit and then a main hold area with an engine room. And the thing is, you're a first-person shooter, and you go up to the main pilot console, and because it's a cheap, basically you can see this screen that's like a flat monitor. And so you're a person playing a first-person character flying a ship. And what this means is the game is actually firing missiles and shields and space combat. But if you get boarded, you have to go fight them. And if you can fire your missiles so that their shields are going to go down, and then beam yourself on board, and then use your shotgun to kill them all, and or better yet, just sneak over to the cockpit, kill the pilot, lock the door, and because you can now access their pilot console, there's no items. You just fly their ship away, and now that's your ship. And so you can upgrade to an aircraft carrier or the Death Star or whatever. And then I have this upgradable parts thing. So if you want a Klingon cloaking device, you have to go find a Klingon ship. It wouldn't actually be Star Trek. And steal their cloaking device, which means boarding them, possibly as a stealth party and going in and then grabbing it and then teleporting out, or possibly about conquering them and going through the wreckage and finding the part. Oh man, that game is beyond too many resources. Ubisoft would like wince at the idea of making this game, but man, do I want to make that game.
It sounds incredible. What a concept, yeah. Very interesting. Did you have a plan B?
If someone can make that, I just want to play it. Like, steal my idea by all means. Just send me a link.
Oh, you're going to regret saying that. You want to trade?
No, I totally want to just play that.
Did you have a plan B if this game developing didn't take off?
Do you mean like in general with my career?
Yeah, if you weren't making any money, you're meant to go into stack shelves. But do you have anything else outside gaming?
So, when I was a young teenager, I was a juggler and unicycler in a traveling fair, and it actually made me like $15 an hour, which for a kid who has no rent and no bills stacks up really quickly. And my dad put it in a savings account, and so I got to drop out of high school and be all like, I don't need to do this, and financially I can buy myself a computer and buy myself some software, and then when it came to being 18 and having to move out, I was able to rent an apartment for almost a year. It was a very bad apartment. It was a room in this house. There was an alcoholic on one side and a recently divorced guy on the other side. So he'd be sobbing, and then this person would be yelling at night. It was all one shared bathroom. It was like $300 a month or something terrible. But I got to rent it for almost a year, and all I did all day was make games with my friends. And that like really helped because I got a lot of practice in. I didn't actually successfully sell a game for another year after that. I had to get a job mopping floors. So as for a plan B, I always knew that I could potentially go back to performing, but also I taught myself programming, so I could get a programming job. But it's hard because I didn't have a degree in programming. So like to be a pure programmer at a company, you get outmatched by someone who isn't self-taught. Like self-taught, maybe at this point, maybe now, if I spent a little bit of time cleaning up my programming, I could mesh in with a team. But back then, I was terrible. I mean, I was horribly self-taught. I had huge gaps in my knowledge. So getting a programming job was problematic. The thing is I built all these small games, and so there was a whole period of like 3 or 4 years where I could either be a game designer, like potentially, like they flew me out to Crytek, I could potentially be one of the 12 people who like is one of the leaders of their team of 400 people, or I could sell coffee. And it was like, there was really no middle ground. So I tried really, really, really hard. And no, there really wasn't much of a safety net for a long time there.
If you ever drop out though, you can teach me how to juggle. I've always wanted to learn how to juggle.
It's surprising how many indies juggle. Steve Swink, who's coming out with Scale, he can unicycle and juggle. And Petri Puro, who did Crayon Physics Deluxe, he can unicycle and juggle. Like some GDC, we all need to get together and put on a show.
That's amazing. It's incredible. Any advice for upcoming developers? Tips of wisdom?
It's interesting because how I got into the industry is different from how it is now, because it's actually, if you can get the right skills, that is either multiple people or teach yourself, you can just download Unity free and sit on your laptop and work. And it's actually like very easy to make a game, and if the game is good, you can sell it. My biggest advice would be don't ever financially depend on your game. I currently am not make me enough money to get out of debt, but that's a pro move, and I know what I'm risking. And when you are starting out, assume your game will make no money, period. And if it does, it's a pleasant surprise. But like, work part-time. I worked part-time. My first game that like sold and made about $40,000, and then later made a total of $80,000, which helped me go full-time indie. I was working at a crack shelter part-time, 2 days a week. And the reason I was working at the crack shelter mopping floors was because they paid danger pay. And so that was enough that if I lived cheap, I could only work like only 2 days a week, which meant I got a full 5-day work week if I worked weekends, basically. So like do something like that. Don't depend on your games when you start out. And then hopefully, if you're good, that's a very temporary situation.
Right. So crack shelters, basically.
Don't actually do that. Just get a part-time job.
How are you planning to market Electronic Superjoy?
Well, it's on Steam now. So Steam has
Yes.
become, for now, our kind of primary platform. So we've put in Steam achievements, Steam leaderboards, sort of thing. The Steam front page will help a lot. It's a standard kind of, here's a big picture, this is what's new on Steam, and it takes Steam's like 48 million customers, a lot of which are dead accounts, a lot of which aren't used very often, but it takes millions of people and says, here, look, and then a percentage of that go to your page. So that is, we're trying to wrap it around having a good game for the 23rd, so that really has a high conversion rate. Other than that, I'm just reaching out to people via email. I did the normal, like, email a bunch of press, emailed Destructoid and Joystick, and they wrote stuff about it. I emailed Kotaku and Rock Paper Shotgun, and they didn't. And, you know, so it's all just kind of hit and miss.
Sure.
But I'm really into Twitch TV. Do you know Twitch TV?
I've heard of it, only because it's been integrated into Xbox, but it's not over here, I'm afraid.
Well, I mean, it's in a browser. So like you go to twitchtv.com and it's like YouTube, but much less known. And it's gamers playing their games live. And so the thing is, there's a couple of people, like maybe it's really small. It's really just starting out. There's only, like, as far as I can tell, maybe 50 people who actually make their living on Twitch TV. Yeah. There's a lot more who make their living on YouTube. Like there's maybe thousands of people who do video games on YouTube. But so, and they're like talk show hosts. They have to sit there for 8 hours and just be incredibly happy and constantly make little jokes and like just be entertaining and on all day, every day, just to barely make enough money to survive. But they professionally play games basically as an entertainer. But it's, I've always liked, like, for a while, I haven't played most of my games. I play the games I really want to, but I also watch a lot of YouTube videos and like watch a lot of people play the games. And so Twitch TV is great because now I only found out about it because people were playing Electronic Superjoy, but now I have a Twitch account and I have a bunch of favorite Twitchers I go and watch. And like I was watching someone play through Donkey Kong Country 2 and it was great. And I had some game design ideas and I was writing them down. And I've actually gotten to the point where I'm hanging out with people on Skype and on Facebook afterwards. Like I'm part of the community. So Twitch is my new big thing because it's so engaging. Because it's not you're watching a video. You can actually say, wow, this game looks really cool. And the guy on the screen goes, yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Like it's live. The guy is there. And so you get to watch and you get to browse like what's currently going on. But you also get to know your favorite personalities. And when you show up, you can be like, hey, Sevidus, and Sevidus will notice in the chat log and be like, hey, Michael, nice to see you, kind of thing. And it's like it's so much more of a community, whereas YouTube is just a little bit more sterile in that you're watching this thing that 300 million people have watched, and you know there's no way that the people who made it know you exist.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry, my phone just buzzed in, which means a friend of mine who's in a band wants to come over and use my industrial CD printer, so I think that's him. I bought an industrial CD printer for $2,000. That's it there. It looks like a giant Easy Bake Oven, basically, or a microwave. And it's really kind of useful. It's kind of awesome because it's funny. Steam and the iPad and so forth, there's this race to the bottom for prices. And like, I bet you in a couple of years, Steam's going to be like, oh, all our dollar games are 90% off. It's only 10 cents. And it's going to be so hard to make money. And I mean, I'm not like horribly greedy and so forth. It's just I do want to be able to pay rent.
Yes.
So I found out that I kind of got into like making manuals and making maps and making. I looked into making plushies and stickers and buttons and printing actual CDs. So you can buy a CD copy of Electronic Superjoy, and you can buy them at conventions like PAX and MagFest and Fan Expo here in Toronto, and they actually sell for a higher ratio because you're not just getting a digital file, and it doesn't just go on your Steam list where there's 800 other games that you haven't played. There's, an actual kind of, there's an artist who did a CD cover and you get it in a pack. And so you actually get to sell it for a slightly higher ratio. So CDs go for about $5 to $10, which is, so initially, now Steam is probably more profitable, but initially we were scraping up a budget by going to every convention we possibly could and selling a few $100s worth of merch.
Yeah. Actually, with all this digital, I do miss the physical format in that sense. For the artwork, the manuals, it was very nice being able to pick up a game, open the case, take out the manual, have a read. Mm-hmm. It's nice to have, hold something in your hand, like reading a book rather than on Kindle. that kind of thing.
No, exactly. I mean, I have a Kindle, and I also have a bookshelf full of books. And to be honest, I just end up reading my books.
Yeah, exactly.
And my next game is definitely, I want more individual characters. So this game is the game has character, but the individual characters, like the players, never defined. I never define the gender of the character. I never define the name of the character. It's very like just this is just a template for you to be in. Sorry, and then whereas my next game, I really want to be able to do a map. Like I want to have like a big map you can unfold. And I have a friend who prints a magazine who like will help me print out a whole bunch on big glossy, like, you know, very pixelated, kind of like the Legend of Zelda, you know, full thing on a poster. That'll be really fun. And then I want to have a manual, like a nice thick manual that details all the different monsters and so forth. Like I really like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I do. It sounds brilliant. Yeah, I hope you get to do that.
Yeah, really cool.
I'm just about out of questions. There's a couple of things I needed to ask, such as, are you planning to get any next-gen consoles? Xbox? Are you a PlayStation man or Nintendo?
Oh, buying them.
Yeah.
I'm not actually a console gamer. I've owned Sega Genesis and a Wii U and an Xbox. Most of those actually, like Xbox, I only bought because I was going to develop for it. I'm very much a PC gamer. Like I play like Civilization and StarCraft, and I play a lot of indie games. And I'm very much a keyboard and mouse kind of person. When we're playing, and there's a party at my place, and we're all like play testing Electronic Superjoy, and we're using a controller. When I'm really frustrated with a level, I'll like go around to the computer behind the projector and use the keyboard, and I'll beat the level way faster, and then I'll sit down again. So. No, I'm not a big console gamer.
Oh well, that's fair enough. Anything else you'd like to add? Favorite game of all time, perhaps.
Mountain Blade.
Mountain Blade. I haven't heard of it.
It's small. It was originally made by a small Turkish couple. I was in the beta, probably 10 years ago, and it's still going strong. It's a series now. It's got multiplayer, but it's just this huge open-ended, never-ends RPG. You start out basically with your equivalent of Rusty Dagger and so forth, and you go into the world. And the thing is, you can play for the entire game. You can be an expert archer, and then that's a whole thing. But you can also, if you can conquer a city, you can start an empire, and you can be a king, and it becomes an RTS. And so you can fight on your own, or you can have huge armies that you move around, and it becomes like Total War. And it's this huge in-depth game. It's like Oblivion, but Oblivion kind of it's not very good. Like it's okay, but it doesn't go much further than what it is. It's kind of all right. You can hack at monsters. We're done here. We're just going to make lots of different types of monsters. Mountain Blade has a really good combat system that's as good or possibly on par with Dark Souls, and it has a huge open world, and it's very interactive, and there's all these different choices you can do. Mountain Blade is awesome.
Yeah, sounds really good. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just that this has been quite fun. And definitely shoot me a link. I'll retweet it.
Yeah, please do. Okay, I don't know what happens now with this video, to be honest. I have to get in touch with Jordan. But thank you very much for taking your time out. And I know you're extremely busy. I really appreciate it.
I've been working a lot, but it's always nice to have a conversation. Kind of a one-sided conversation. You're very kind to listen to me ramble.
Not at all.
It's been very, very fun talking to you. I'll see you around.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.